In my opinion, the portal is probably one of the biggest problems introduced by Bungie in the last few years. Creator LLama has a solution to make this problem much less of an issue for every single player. As a user interface designer, I have a few things to say about this. Let's have a look at the video with my reaction to each of his changes.
The portal in its current iteration has, in all honesty, damaged the game, or at least a large portion of it. Despite this though, the portal itself isn't a bad idea. In fact, I think it's a great idea, if executed correctly, which is the key distinction to what we're dealing with currently. So today, my aim is to show you my proposed rework of how it can be best utilized to improve the game rather than hinder it, because I believe it truly can achieve this given time. In today's video, not only am I going to explain my ideas, but also show them to you with the aid of several custom illustrations created by the wonderful Court Project, who is seriously talented. Together, we have gone all out and created a full restructuring of the entire portal experience, from the main menu, new categories and submenus, UI overhauls, and much more. What you're seeing is just a teaser of what's in store, so please make sure to show Court some love as well, as some of these pieces are truly impressive. Furthermore, big videos like these take quite a lot of time and effort to theorize, record, illustrate, edit, all the works. In fact, it has taken us around 2 weeks to put this all together. So if you end up strongly resonating with today's content and want to support the channel so we can continue to make more of these high production projects in the future, consider leaving a super thanks down in the comments below, as both myself and the team would seriously appreciate it. With that being said though, let's begin by discussing what the portal is currently and why it is bad. Right now, the portal is the main way to engage with the game. Any activity that's present within the portal can be played to earn gear and progress your character's level, including the new destination from the Edge of Fate, Kepler. Portal activities are also the only way to obtain weapons and armor that are part of the new tier system. So basically, if you find an activity that isn't in the portal, such as nightmare hunts on the moon, playing this activity will not offer tiered rewards or allow said rewards to offer a power increase. Only activities that are exclusively in the portal fit this criteria. More generally, the portal is also a way for older seasonal content which was previously removed to rotate back into the game permanently. Examples include the Echoes Battlegrounds, Plunder Expeditions, and Savathûn Spire, to name a few. Lastly, most of the portal activities feature the brand new activity customization and scoring feature that allow you to tweak with the difficulty of them by adding modifiers, positive or negative, and you're encouraged to play with this system to tailor your activities to your specific needs, with the modifiers you apply heavily influencing the quality of the loot you earn. And that's basically the portal. So why is this bad? For starters, so much of the rest of the game's content is not in the portal, including 9 raids and 10 dungeons, and no, the dungeon layers don't count. The majority of the available Nightfall strikes, 21 missing to be exact, Gambit, 5 exotic missions, including Derealize, and fun fact, at time of writing, Barrow Dyad from Episode Heresy is still completely unobtainable, campaigns, and other offensives like Dares of Eternity. The aforementioned missing content cannot increase your power level as a result and is basically entirely irrelevant, and playing it has absolutely no benefit to the reward chase. The armor that drops isn't tiered and uses the old Armor 2.0 system, which is bad. The weapons aren't tiered either, though admittedly they do still retain their value because obviously some guns are still pretty good and enhanceable. Think Velocity Baton or Hezen Vengeance for example, though this is still not ideal. Basically, the first half of the problem boils down to the fact that outside of the portal's limited selection of activities, nothing else in the game matters with regards to increasing your character's level, improving your arsenal, and so on. It's like the portal and the world tab/director are two entirely separate games, because they literally are. Everything you could do before Edge of Fate came out, including grinding weapons and armor, can still be done. You can still get Armor 2.0 if you really want to. You can still get all the old weapons that can be enhanced and so on, which is fine to a degree, but it ultimately leads to confusion. The second half is to do with how activities in the portal are launched, the ever so tedious modifier selection screen. I'm of the stance that while yes, giving players more agency and freedom to tailor an activity to their specific playstyle and expectations is a good idea in principle, in practice it just straight up doesn't work. It is so tedious to decide which modifiers to use, which ones increase my score, trying to make sure I don't make the activity too hard, while also making sure my projected score stays within the range I want it. And half the time the scoring system doesn't correctly predict what you're actually going to get anyway. It just creates so much unnecessary thinking when I wish I could just pick an activity, choose between a selection of difficulties like Master, Grandmaster, or Ultimate that I know will guarantee me good rewards, then off I go. Minimal clicks, minimal friction. The
Portal was designed for quick play activities, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you have to take so much time to pick these modifiers to just launch you in. That is true. But also the port, which he doesn't mention, is the portal was created to pull all these activities and prioritize them so it would decrease the amount of time you would take to get to the other activities, and kind of focuses. So for newer players, they would see maybe what would be featured that week or that month or whatever, and you would be able to quickly at least access them rather than searching the amount of areas you have in the director. Yeah, so he does address some of it, but not all.
Previous Grandmaster Nightfalls were an excellent example of this, and people loved it. Just one glance at the GM report leaderboards will show you that hundreds of players held this activity so incredibly dear and made it their main way of interacting with the game, which is sadly now gone. So altogether, the current portal creates a disjointed experience that separates the content that arguably made the game special in the first place from offering any meaningful progression, while also ruining some of the charm the game previously had.
Like 100% that the actual portal aesthetically and vibe-wise looks completely separate to the director style of the game. It absolutely does, but it's kind of meant to as well, and it does not feel like it is part of the Destiny experience.
Personally, I don't like being greeted by the portal when I log on. I'd much prefer being greeted with the director just like before. So, how do we begin to fix these problems? Well, first of all, it's important to understand what the philosophy of the portal is, and what exactly it's trying to achieve. So, let's begin with part 1, the philosophy of the portal. My belief is that, at least partially, Bungie envisioned the portal to be a place like the Helm or the Last City that could serve as the main seasonal/weekly hub without having to be an actual physical location that players could visit, and more generally, a nice place to organize current and previous seasonal content that also allows efficient funneling of player populations to what's currently relevant and worth playing. The advantage of the portal, however, is that because it's a menu and not a physical location, year over year, the activities that come along seasonally don't have to be retired and can instead live within the portal forever. Just think how many times the Helm got refreshed with new rooms to the left, right, and back year on year with each coming season. And now imagine how much simpler that would be to organize with a menu rather than a physical location.
Also, how much less work it is when it's a flat menu system that you just need to change out the background screen. That's much less work than creating these individual portal or these individual seasonal areas. Much less work.
So, my overarching proposition for what the portal should be is this. Rather than the game being playable only through the portal should exclusively serve as an organization hub for seasonal and weekly content, where said content can still be manually accessed from the director, just made easier via the portal. I truly believe that the portal can work really well if it's treated solely as an organization tool for particularly relevant activities, not as the only avenue to play the game and progress. As a result, the portal and the rest of the game will still remain as separate systems. However, the portal deals only with organization whose sole purpose is guiding players to what is currently worth playing in that particular week or season. This also means that outside of the portal, you can now play the game and earn power/progress your character through activities that aren't within it. And to communicate this better, we're now moving into part 2 of the rework presentation. Currently, I personally feel the portal UI isn't exactly flattering and could do with some much needed polish. It feels very separate from the beautiful director UI that has greeted us for so many years, and I believe that in order for me to communicate this new vision most effectively, it's time to start flexing some graphics. So let's start at the top with priority number 1, portal access. In my opinion, the director should always be the home screen of the game, and in this vision, it is. But there's just a giant button for the portal right in the middle, as well as Kepler, which really should have been there from the start. So step 1 of the overall presentation, make the director the default, then have the portal still being obviously there. As you can see here, Kepler fits right in, and there's ample space for other well-known locations like the Dreadnought and even the Reef, as seen in this new vision. Next up,
Let's go back a bit. This setup. Now, my first impression as a UI designer is that this is way too complicated. Like, one of the problems that Bungie was is always going to have and consistently has with the destination screen is a build up of items where there's no priority, there is no focus, and your eye doesn't know where to go. Unless, if you're a new player, this is overload. Like an old player or a veteran player, you will see the new items no problem. But from a hierarchy point of view, adding more elements into the screen that's already significantly packed is not the best solution. Is there a solution that involves using this format? I'm sure there is, but just adding more elements in and then trying to prioritize them with like overload as it is, for me, isn't the solution. I do agree that there is a solution in the destinations page, and it is going to take more work to get there. It's probably an interactive solution to how you're positioning them, but adding more elements to the screen is not an answer for me. There's a significant amount going here. So adding in the portal as another visual element, and then trying to prioritize, you're seeing that each of these elements that is featured gets lost in the design. So like you're lacking hierarchy. 2, it's overload because you have multiple different elements happening at the same time. So like you have standard activities like Crucible, Gambit, Vanguard, all at the same level of priority. And you don't know where you're supposed to go. So like if you're greeted to this screen, for the majority of veteran players, you'll know what will be new. But like if you were, say, a generally casual player, you still will go, okay, so this is a confusing mess of a lot of things added. Like you're adding more elements to an already increasingly dense page. So one of the things for the portal was to allow for less elements on this page.
There, as you can see here, Kepler fits right in, and there's ample space for other well-known locations like the Dreadnought and even the Reef, as seen in this new vision. Next up, I want to discuss redistributing exactly what's in the portal. As a result of me wanting the portal to be more of a weekly/seasonal hub, there's plenty of activities that are in it that simply don't need to be in there anymore. And because I want a renewed or returned focus to the director, any activity that can appear in the portal will have their nodes moved to their corresponding destinations. For example, consider hovering over the Europa map, panning left and seeing Solo Ops Creation just chilling there. Or same goes for Savathun Spire on the Throne World next to the Sanctum, Caldera for Kepler right in the middle, and so on.
I also had a look at this, saying it might be an idea to throw these different elements into the world map, but then you're hiding them. You're actually creating more clicks to get to these featured areas, but you have to go find them. So the point of the portal was to give these featured activities more priority, and I will always come back to the more priority thing, which if you hide them in the world map, then you're not solving the problem that the portal was addressing. And the portal was addressing, it's hard to find things, know where they are, and quickly access them. So this is just putting them on the world map and negating the problem. Like, it's ignoring the problem.
A refreshed director always brings more life into the game, and it would be awesome to see the Dreadnought hanging near Saturn's orbit, allowing you to select things like the Nether, Court of Blades, or the Sunless Cell from within its director menu. The Cosmodrome could also be extended to accommodate the Plague Lands, including all 3 Reclaim variants and the Heliostat exotic mission, and a node for the Reef can be added to accommodate things like Contest of Elders, Kel's Vengeance, or Warden of...
As long as you know what these things are, again, there'd be no explanation of what they are, what you get out of them. Like, so there is a lack of like layered information. So you're just presuming that everybody knows what these are and why they're important. What is missing here is contextually the information. So what is this element? What happens when I click into this? Is it, which of these is featured, which is not featured? Why should I pick one over the other? So there's like what I would say is a graphic layer here, which looks good, but from a user interface point of view, it lacks any contextual awareness. So like, why am I going here? What is the benefit for doing, which always laid out in the portal? And I'm not advocating for the portal, but there's reasons that you lay out certain things in a certain way. You guide your user to going towards them and say, what are you going to get? What's the benefit of going there? Like, are these timed weekly missions? It's like, so are these featured for this week? How do you know that? There is nothing here telling me that any of that those details. The gold star should tell the player if it's featured. Yes, but like, this is my point. If you're doing interface design, you create a language that you communicate to the user, and then you would reassert what it does on pages. So explain. But what's not being done here is, here's Contest of Elders.
Is it featured? How long is it? What you get out of it? Is there any elements, like what do you need playing it? Like details apart from here's where they are. It's just the visuals, yeah. It's like a aesthetic layer. This isn't a user interface solution. This is like a graphic solution, but it's not a user interface.
Of nothing. It just adds so much more life and vibrance to the game if the director is continually updated. Here's a full shot of what it could look like, and at least in my opinion, Kepler fits right in, and so too do the Dreadnought and the Reef. So now that we've kitted out the director, it's time to dive inside the portal and find out what's changed in my new and improved vision. My idea is simple. The new portal screen features 4 activity categories and 4 singular activity nodes, all on the same page, including Seasonal, Fireteam, Pinnacle, and Endgame Ops categories.
First things first here. It's the same problem that I was suggesting before. Everything is the same size, so it's the same priority. So the first thing you're seeing, the biggest thing on this page, is the circular icon for the portal. Like, that's not clickable, so why would it be the biggest thing on that page? I like this simplification, but I think that it's too simplified to be anything to be used. I think this is just definitely a presentation. It's not like a solution. How do you find out what is more relevant to you now? So there's no temporal basis. Also, I don't think that just presenting just the icons, you're going into a situation whereby if you're going to take the aesthetic of the director, then implement the aesthetic of the director into these pages as well, right? So like right now you're just throwing large icons, large graphics up on screen, and they all have the same information and there's no depth to them. They don't feel clickable. And you have things that are not clickable by presuming the element in the middle is not clickable, yet it is the biggest part on this. Like it's lack of awareness of how to lay out an interface.
Categories, then a daily rotating solo op, which could be K1 Logistics, Caldera, or new ones, a weekly Grandmaster Nightfall node, identical to the previous weekly GM Nightfall consisting of exclusively strikes and battlegrounds, a weekly featured Crucible mode, which could be Mayhem, Countdown, etc., then lastly a node for Gambit. This new screen would feature detailed explanations on exactly what each category and focus node entails. Feel free to pause and have a read if you'd like.
Yeah, you see, you'd have to pause and have a read of the lots of details. There is giving you the information you need right there and then there's presenting every single element of it. So it's like the one thing that Destiny doesn't seem to do well is layering information according to your level of your level of expertise. So if the familiarity that you have with Destiny and the game, if you're new to the game or you've been there for 10 years, they give you the exact same screen. In my experience, is not great and even simple websites don't do that. So you can layer the information according to what your familiarity is on the topic or subject. That is done badly by Destiny, and here it is just drop everything onto the screen as well. So it's not the destination screen, it's too much information.
As well as a new boon selector, which will allow you to activate positive modifiers for all featured activities, but more details on this later. I'll leave the full illustration on screen a little longer for you to fully take it in, but now let's discuss exactly what each node and category entails, starting with Seasonal Ops. Seasonal Ops is a new category that always contains every non-raid and dungeon activity from the newest expansion/current season, and in our case this would include the Civ, Caldera, all Reclaim variants, and the Heliostat exotic mission that drop a mixture of bonus loot and a daily bonus focus. And in my mind, this category would refresh its offerings every 6 months alongside each new season, and the major update within said season would add its own activities to the mix. This graphic shows a mixture of Reclamation Act 1 activities including the Civ and Caldera, as well as from Act 2 Ash and Iron like all 3 Reclaims and Heliostat. This category would also allow the user to toggle between Act 1, Act 2 or all activities within it as a way of having a clean and manageable UI experience. Fireteam Ops returns in its current form and consists of a list of 3 Fireteam Ops that can be farmed for bonus drops and a daily bonus focus, though the key difference to the current iteration of Fireteam Ops we have is that my version now includes 6-player Fireteam activities like Dares of Eternity, the Menagerie, or even Escalation Protocol as seen in this graphic here.
The design setup for the portal as is. This is just reconfiguring it. This would be fine. I do like the the return of Escalation Protocol. I always enjoyed that.
Here, hopes and prayers for those last two, and also event-limited activities like Haunted Altars, and the selection of activities refreshes daily. Pinnacle Ops are again similar to what we have currently, offering a selection of 3 activities from the likes of exotic missions, onslaughts, and crawls like the Coil or Contest of Elders, featuring bonus drops and a daily bonus focus that also refresh daily, including the likes of Dual Destiny. And also, my version excludes the presence of dungeon layers. In fact, I'm opting to completely remove dungeon layers from the game, as I don't think they've landed particularly well, and also because of the 4th and final category, Endgame Ops. Endgame Ops will feature a list of several raid and dungeon activities that can be farmed for bonus drops, including full clears, boss rushes, and pantheons, where this time the selection refreshes weekly rather than daily, in an effort to bring back the weekly rotating raids and dungeons that we previously had. We've also gone ahead and created a little tooltip that describes what exactly you may find inside this category. Again, pause if you want to have a read, and examples include a full run of Sundered Doctrine, epic Ghosts of the Deep, a Root of Nightmares boss rush where you skip encounters 1 and 2 and just focus on the bosses, or a full Rulk Indomitable Pantheon where each of these activities come with various bonus rewards, bonus focuses, and deeply rich customization options.
They seem like they'd be good additions, but I feel the reason that we haven't seen a lot of these is because Bungie hasn't actually just done it. I don't know that. There's nothing telling me that. I mean, that would be great to add into the current portal or a variation of, but like I feel that Bungie hasn't is making its way through content.
Going a little off track for a second, these additions aren't necessarily to do with the portal, but I still wanted to highlight them because, again, Court has made some fantastic graphics for them. You'll notice that the full run activities have a settings wheel within them, which in our vision would lead to a sub-menu that allows you to, number 1, select your checkpoint, where in this example we have Salvation's Edge starting from the 2nd checkpoint, Herald of Finality, including loot table information on the right-hand side, as well.
Hiding away menu systems like this is problematic. It's complicated, and from a small button without any kind of like there's no, again, go back to hierarchy. So you're diving into this. I don't know where you would start with this. Like at what point is your first click point? Like where is the progression? So you have to map out where you want the users to start with. I don't know where you're supposed to start here. Like, is this checkpoint selection? Like, I don't understand the flow here. And this is the problem with doing the aesthetics in a if you're doing a design setup for this, you would map out how the user gets to this page, what their core function would be, what are they attempting to do, and then map where they would start and end, and variants on how they would get there. So what if they click this, what option would that present? But it also would be, you'd be clear where your first click point would be. This isn't designed like that. The real fix to the portal is adding checkpoints to dungeons. I mean, yep, checkpoints to dungeons would be great. I'm just coming from like the design point of view, because it just creates so many problems when I'm looking at it, going like, where do I start here? Is this clickable? Like encounter 1, encounter 2, encounter 3, Herald of Finality. Right, a checkpoint selection. Is this? Do I can't come in from that checkpoint selection? Make it repeatable. Is this clickable? I don't understand the screen. It should be, if you can't understand the screen straight away, then you've made it too complicated. Like, also presenting all the information at once, always a problem. If you present everything up front, if you started with start here, then gets here, and then you kind of block out that information so you know where you're going to get to, great. But like, I find that it's just that lack of understanding of laying out a page. Did he not explain it?
As well as another menu.
No, if you have to explain a page, like, there's nobody going to be explaining pages. So if you don't get it straight away, but when you look at it, then it's a non-functional page. But that's my problem. So he explained that this is a checkpoint selector. So are these a checkpoint selector? Like, is this, like, what is... Well, yes, but for this video, he should be explaining how you would interact. Obviously, this is not usable or interactive. But the point is, they set it up to be. They set up these up to be screens. Or maybe I'm taking this too literally. Because, like, for me, you're either, like, the presentation, because you set it up like this, then if you're presenting them as screens, then they're screens. So some are screens, but some are presentation only. This is not usable or interactive. So you like, which screens are usable because they're presented to be usable, and which screens are not usable? The highlights in green are where you would click. You would find that by, so like, okay, you assume, right? You assume that this is, you can click these two. that this is where you start. Their drop-down style. Maybe this would be outside of the language of Destiny doesn't use drop-downs, but like it's unclear how this works. That's all I'm saying. It's unclear how this works.
And the second checkpoint, Herald of Finality, including loot table information on the right hand side, as well as another menu to configure your feat selection, presenting information about reward quality and more. Again, pause if you need to. Like I said, these systems aren't exactly Portal specific, but still worth highlighting because A, we kinda need them, and B, the graphics are awesome. Alright then, now let's discuss the 4 activity nodes that sit alongside the activity categories, starting with the daily rotating solo op. This node will feature a single solo op that offers bonus rewards and a bonus focus that rotates daily. It's pretty simple, but that's all it should be. Still the same quick 10-minute commitment that Bungie described as a way to jump in, get some progression done, then get out. Following that, we then have the classic weekly Nightfall, a single Vanguard op, either a strike or a battleground that offers bonus drops, plentiful endgame resources like Ascendant Shards, Prisms, and Exotics, as well as a pinnacle weapon focus that can be farmed indefinitely. This activity refreshes weekly, just like the previous GM Nightfalls, and to keep things challenging, the tuning for this activity would be slightly more strict than that of regular ultimate activities we have now, since they're kind of a pushover, but feel free to disagree with me down in the comments below. Destiny 2 desperately needs a weekly chase like GM Nightfall's back, and while I do admit that a lot of what I say here today will likely never get implemented, I still want to stress that as a bare minimum, a weekly chase equivalent to GMs that features a focus drop, plentiful resources, and is a decent challenge must make its way back into the game somehow. Moving on, the weekly Crucible playlist node will feature a singular Crucible mode, like Mayhem, that offers bonus drops and a daily bonus focus, which rotates weekly. Finally, the Gambit node will simply allow access to Gambit from within the portal, which can also be done via the Director that also features a daily bonus focus. And yeah, it goes without saying that Gambit now offers tiered gear and power level increases. Gambit could also be expanded to feature Gambit weeks, where for 1 week only, every so often, the Gambit node offers many more bonus drops and increased resources, just as an idea. Same could apply to both the Crucible and GM nodes too, kind of like the old double loot, double reputation weeks. I want to be very clear though, all of these activities that rotate in are always accessible, regardless of whether they're featured in the portal or not. You can simply find them on their respective planets or sections within the Director. It's just that when they are featured, they're more worth doing because of that. And side note, if an activity is featured, it will also indicate this on the Director with a clearly defined icon or multiple of them above the relevant destination. For example, this blue icon indicates that a featured activity is present within Savathun's throne world, and upon further investigation we can see that the birthplace of the Vile Strike is currently active within the portal and as such will drop improved rewards. More on this very shortly in the reward section, but that's the general idea. The portal streamlines the experience of finding what's relevant on any given day, but even without interacting with the portal you can still find what's relevant via the Director, and it's glaringly obvious at that. Speaking of featured activities, let's discuss how I'm changing the distribution of rewards in this new version of the portal to make it so it is still worth interacting with and checking what's available. In my version, rewards for activities will behave much like they do now. Any activity that can rotate into the portal, even if it isn't featured on a given day, still drops 2 or 3 powerful rewards upon completion that can simply be accessed from within its destination or location on the Director. But for when it is featured, the activity now offers more completion rewards than it normally does, depending on the activity and category / rotator. For example, the daily solo op will always drop 2 rewards rather than 1 like its worldly counterparts when it is featured. Then for seasonal activities, think Reclaim and Heliostat, currently they both drop 3 and 2 rewards respectively, but in my system they would drop 4 and 3.
So yeah, I think there are some good ideas here. I think it would take a team to implement a variant of it. Like, I think there's some that if I look at it as a presentation and not as user screens, which I look at it as user screens, and maybe that's a mistake from my side. I do like the synergy that the portal and the rest of the game has, or adds, the way that adds. I do like that. I do think that the destination screen needs to be the heart of the game, and the portal sits very outside of that. But there is a lot of layering of information that isn't done and just presenting everything on screen at the same time. There is a colorization, like say color code that is used that is, yes, that might be helpful in the game. I think that there is some of the language of design that Destiny uses that this would sit outside. But overall, there is some good ideas in here. But like there is a lot of distractions from finding an activity, playing an activity, even in this design.
Incentivizing you to try the new stuff and also be rewarded for it, for as long as they remain in the seasonal category. So basically, the seasonal ops tab is generally more rewarding for the duration of a major update / season when compared to similar activities outside of it, again to incentivize playing the new stuff. The same goes for Pinnacle Ops. They would typically have 1 or 2 more completion rewards attached to them if present within the portal on that day, though this also introduces the possibility with things like the Coil, where you could really juice it and give it like 8 completion rewards rather than 4 when it rotates in, to really push people to play it. Furthermore, outside of the portal, all raids and dungeons can be completed once per week for an offering of +3 gear for each encounter completion, including an additional full clear bonus chest and bonus focus.
I actually would say for the raids, this might be a good idea, as well as showcasing what the exotic is attached to this raid, and then the specific weapons that you can get, which would be craftable, that are attached to this raid, because you have to go looking for that. I think being able to see what the loot is per raid might be an actual a beneficial thing to say, oh, I want a conditional finality to get from Ron or something, and say, well, okay, these other things would unlock as well, which currently is not the case.
However, the key distinction is that the selection of rad content within the endgame ops category and the newest raid or dungeon can be farmed indefinitely rather than just once, also for +3s, including the bonus focuses, weekly tier upgrade challenges, and so on. Here's some more examples like Last Wish, with indicators that make it abundantly clear it's farmable and currently featured. Same goes for Vow of the Disciple, including a bonus focus for submission, or Warlord's Ruin, with a bonus focus for the goat in depth.
Yeah, here as well, there's way too much information on screen. If they just put in, I like that adding the loot element and the specifics of that dungeon, yes. Telling you it's currently featured should work within the iconography. You don't need to explain that. And then I would go into the details of what, maybe laying out the 3 highest valued weaponry that you can get from that dungeon or raid.
Indebted kindness. The power grind can also be extended to literally anything. I personally think it could be awesome to have things like complete 10 patrols on the Cosmodrome and receive a powerful drop for every 2 that you do, complete Pale Heart overthrows for powerful, dual Destiny class items drop as powerful, and many more such cases. The ultimate goal is that you can play your way, but the portal still offers a more efficient weekly and seasonal path. Another important factor that will 100% reinvigorate the reward chase is adding activity exclusive rewards. Think strike-specific loot, but more so in the form of curated roles like back in the day, for each activity that rotates into the portal. But the catch is, you can't earn this special drop unless the activity is featured. Imagine that Caldera offered a special version of Giver's Blessing with a really low drop chance that came with attrition orbs in the left column and a second selectable origin trait, something like nanotech tracer missiles, that you could only get from this activity only when it's featured. Any other version of the gun obtained elsewhere won't have this special role ever, which I personally think is a pretty good idea. Now, I know that yes, there are a lot of activities, so not all of them need to have a special curated drop, at least initially, which honestly makes it better and more rare, just something extra to keep an eye out for every once in a while. Veteran players will remember that Gnawing Hunger had a special variant that came with Overflow in the left column that only dropped from Tier 3 Reckoning when the Likeness of Oryx was the weekly boss, and I can tell you from personal experience that the drop rate was so very low. I farmed for hours and hours, and when I did eventually get it, it was a very good feeling. In fact, I still have it sitting in my vault to this very day. The one type of activity that I do want to have exclusive drops for each one are conquests, which I do think are pretty good. A tailored experience with challenging deltas and modifiers is fun, at least to me, so to make them extra worth it, tie a unique drop to each of them and make it a low chance from farms, but make it worth the grind, especially if it involves farming something like the recent Avalon conquest. Bonus points if if you can remember the name of this gun. Drop it in the comments if you do. That's basically all I would do when it comes to rewards and reward allocation, plus giving reasons to interact with portal activities that rotate in and out. And I'll reiterate the main point, you should still have the ability to play essentially anything you want and gain power from it. Most importantly, raids and dungeons. And you can still launch any activity that isn't featured in the portal on any given day and still get power and tiered gear from it. However, if you decide to play the featured activities instead, you'll receive a greater quantity of rewards as well as a low chance at a super special drop that can only be farmed when the given activity is featured. The last part of my rework concerns a selection of key quality of life improvements that I believe would make the experience of interacting with the portal a whole lot smoother, with the first major change being the removal of the ability to choose your own modifiers. A little bit dramatic, I know, but stick with me here. While yes, it does sound nice in theory to be able to tailor the activities to your preferences, it ultimately leads to choosing the same 4 or 5 modifiers for every single activity that secures the path of least resistance when it comes to ensuring score and reward quality, which also adds yet another step in between choosing said activity and actually launching it, which is especially demoralizing on update days with new content where you want to just jump straight in and get some gear, but your excitement is immediately halted because you need to rack your brain about which modifiers to use and so on, and as such, the feature needs to go. My system takes us back to pre-selected modifiers that, for the sake of variety, rotate on a weekly or daily basis depending on the activity or node, and while we're at it, let's remove the scoring system too, and instead tie the quality of the rewards we get to the actual difficulty of the activity itself. Activity difficulty selection should be simple to understand and simple to apply, and I just know that I would much prefer having it so higher difficulties, like Ultimate, always drop tier 5s, and easier difficulties, like Expert or Master, always drop lower tiered gear, though still have a small chance to improve the tier up to a tier 5. I'm still a believer that each unique difficulty should be locked behind power progression though, so higher tier gear remains being tied to power in a way, but more so to unlock the method of getting them. Speaking of power, in an effort to retain some level of activity customization and reward players who climb to higher power levels, I want to propose a solution that achieves both the goal of increased player agency and reduced friction when launching a given activity. Enter the Boon Selector. The Boon Selector is a new sub-menu within the portal that unlocks once you hit power level 470, aka around the point you're comfortably into your ultimate difficulty activities, that now allows you to permanently choose a selection of 3 positive modifiers that will always be applied to any portal activity you play, disregarding Crucible. Furthermore, because we remove the scoring system, these positive modifiers don't negatively affect your rewards in any shape or form, and simply allow you to gain combat advantages or have some more fun in whatever activity you play, including raids and dungeons by the way. For example, your loadout could consist of something like Solar Surge, Grappler, and Brawler to fully enhance a Solar Titan Bonk Hammer build to the absolute extreme, and other more recent modifiers like the Plasma Accelerant from Reclaim that grants permanent amplified and radiant, or the Ionic Recharger that makes your bolt charge detonations super juiced and create a landfall explosion could also be moved into this menu, alongside event modifiers too, like for Solstice or Festival of the Lost. I think this would be an awesome way of rewarding players who climb to higher power levels, and again, it's only applicable to activities featured in the portal. Lastly, matchmaking. Make matchmaking available for all activities except dungeons and raids. There's no excuse for any other activity, regardless of difficulty, to not have matchmaking. It's not that deep, and again, removes another barrier to entry. It's quality of life things like this that I truly think would make the portal an unstoppable, world-class support system that I'm certain was what Bungie always intended. It's just unfortunate that they've had so many stumbles along the way, but that's what they've got us for. I believe nothing can stop a passionate enough community, and I hope that what you've seen in today's video proves that. To conclude, let's do a quick recap of the important topics. The portal should become a system that focuses on weekly, daily, and seasonal bonus activities where everything else in the game can still offer power as well, especially raids and dungeons. However, the portal itself features exclusive and more plentiful rewards, as well as custom experiences like boss rushes and pantheons, and a unique positive modifier selection system that serves only to round out builds and enhance the fun factor, instead of causing unnecessary headaches and time wasting. The rest of the game game outside of the portal can still be grinded for power and progression, as well as offering tiered gear, relevant resources, and matchmaking. There's still a clear highlight on newer content within the seasonal ops category, and the director is restored to its former glory as the homepage of the game. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed this one, as it's taken a huge amount of time and effort to produce. Again, massive shout out to Court for creating such amazing concept images and carrying the aesthetic of the video. And if any of you consider supporting further through super thanks or simply sharing with your friends or community, we seriously appreciate you. Also, I'd love to hear your own thoughts on whether you agree or disagree with the points brought up here today and about how you would personally improve the portal. Please make yourself heard down in the comments below.
That was from Llama. If you want to see the full video yourself, check out his YouTube page.
Wow, this has just been such a pleasure. I'm such a lucky boy. I can't wait to go home and